Hello and welcome to the 50th gathering of the Adventure Party on this, the 5th of June. I am your party leader, Brad Ludwig. We ask that you peace tie your swords, holster your blasters, and use the proper hand signals to let people know what discipline you are using while you are gathered at the meeting table. You know, I wrote that line and it sounded so good in my head, but it is a verbal landmine of trip-ups there, as you could see. Well, we've been gone for a couple of weeks due to illness and other things, but excuse me. And obviously we have a lot of cobwebs here to kick out. But we are back, and we are back with our guest, Gretchen Wolfmeyer. And she is an actress who has a cameo in Rob Schrab's Robot Bastard.
Yeah, that's right. Steve Fosse represent. We built that show, but we can talk more about that later.
Yes, absolutely we will, because it's gold, Jerry. It's gold. She's also an improv comedian and a LARP-er, which is kind of how we met, and we'll get into that a little later on too. We wanted to get her perspective on what LARP is. Is it improv? Is it theater? Or is it something else? Or is it all of them together? Or nothing at all? So there you go. The second in command, as always, is Glenn Bittner, and he is a movie reviewer on his YouTube show, The B-Movie Bunker, and the creator of the RPG Mistrunner. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brad. Just fantastic. Almost orgasmic way.
All right. Well, keep your pants on and your hands above the desk, and we'll be all right. There we go, and we're off. As always, we do our roundtable discussion, the game review, gaming news, and we're gonna talk a lot with Gretchen. So, here we go, Glenn.
I hope so.
It's your yes. It's always a treat to talk with Gretchen. She just brings sunshine wherever she goes. Glenn, you have an interesting game.
I do.
What is this?
Let me take you back in time to Chicago, 1893, and the World's Fair. World's Fair. World's Fair 1893 is a newer board game. Came out this year. It's from Foxtrot Games and Renegade Games, designed by J. Alex Kevern. We're looking at 2 to 4 players and plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. For those of you who don't know what the World's Fair is, you should check it out. It was a pretty cool thing that we used to do. We don't really do it anymore. It was kind of a thing of just getting together all sorts of stuff of not just technology and science, but arts and entertainment and culture and all these countries coming together and showcasing all this nifty stuff. And despite what a friend of mine thought when I mentioned the game, it has nothing to do with serial killers and murder hotels. You can also look that up as well.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yes.
That is, if you can find the documentary. What is his name? Holmes, the first serial killer.
Yes. Look that up. Also, check out about the Gokstad, the Viking replica longship that they built and sailed from Norway to Chicago.
That's interesting.
Also part of the 1893 World's Fair.
Huh.
And also a card in this game.
Oh.
So, in World's Fair, what you're doing is each player, you're playing as basically organizers of the fair. And you're trying to increase your influence throughout the fair and obtain different exhibits that will be put on display. And you're basically trying to get reputation. Whoever has the best reputation at the end of the game is going to win. Now, there are 5 areas of the fair, and you're going to be vying for influence by putting your little influence cubes on your turn in an area. And when you do that, there are cards in those areas, and you'll take all the cards in an area when you place a cube there. Those cards can be one of 3 things. They can be midway tickets, which, one, advance the game clock. There's it's a giant Ferris wheel that is actually the clock for each turn. You're playing 3 turns, and every time you take a ticket, midway ticket, you tick up on the Ferris wheel 1 space. The they're also worth points at the end of each round. You get 1 point for tickets you have, along with a bonus if you have the most. Something else you can collect are influential people. You collect people who will give you special abilities that you can use on your next turn. That could be something like when you play a cube in a space, you get to play another one there, or you get to play one in another space next to it, or you get to move a cube from somewhere else on the board. So influential people are cool, but you have to use them immediately the next turn you get them. You can't save them up for later. The other thing you can get are actual exhibits. Now the exhibits come into play because once a turn is completely done, when the Ferris wheel is moved all the way around, you go through each of the 5 areas and figure out who has the most influence in each area. If I have the most influence in, say, electricity, I get a little medal saying I took first place, which is worth some reputation points. I also get to approve 3 of any electricity exhibits that I have in front of me. And that's how you're scoring the most points, is you're getting these different exhibits. And the more diverse your exhibits are, meaning spread across the 5 areas, the more points they're worth. So you keep going around this 3 times, and then the final round you do your final scoring round, and again, most reputation is going to win. It's got a nifty mechanic because of the cards constantly being replenished in all these different areas, and buying for this constant control of influence in these areas to get your exhibits approved, while, of course, preventing your opponents from getting theirs approved. And it's also just fun to read the cards and see some of the things that were introduced at the 1893 World's Fair. I mean, things that weren't, that we think are commonplace, well, or at least were at one time, like the first automatic popcorn popper and stuff like that. And reading the tickets and seeing the things that were at that World's Fair, 123 years ago now. Gosh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, that was Nikola Tesla's thing.
Yeah.
That was his year to shine, and shine he did, literally. Yeah. Not funny. All right. Continue on, Glenn.
There's no humor in science.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the areas, Glenn?
So you have fine arts, electricity. Let's see, now I have to remember. There's transportation. There's... I'm forgetting now because I don't have the game in front of me. It's over on my shelf.
Oh, hang on. I think I've got a picture here.
I have. Well, I should have. I have the link I can look at. If I knew how to.
Are there 5 areas?
There are 5 areas.
Oh yeah, transportation, fine art, electricity, some kind of craft or manufacture or invention.
Manufacturing.
Okay, and then it looks like I see wheat here, so something dealing with food?
Agriculture.
Agriculture? Okay.
Yep. So yeah. That's I mean, that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. It plays pretty quick, which I know you like, Brad. And a lot of people
do.
A lot of people like having that quicker playthrough. So, and it just shows again that you can take almost anything and make an interesting game of it.
Yeah,
and they've really made a pretty fun game with this. I've run it several times now in the store. We actually got it as board game companies have started doing pre-releases. It's kind of their way of saying, hey, we know that brick and mortar stores are important to us. And as much as, as many copies as Amazon may sell of these games and online sellers may sell, it's the brick and mortar stores that really do a lot to help out the board game company, because we're the ones who are talking about the game and are showing them off in our stores. So they let us have copies of the games 2 weeks in advance.
That's so nice.
A trade-off being that we do something to kind of promote it. We, as I said, I ran a couple demo nights at the store for World's Fair when it came out, and it's nice to also have that 2-week head start before any online sellers have the game.
Yeah, I absolutely love stores that do game demos. That they will, when they get a preview game, or if they've got a game that they decide that they're going to, maybe run a sale on and run a demo of the game. There is no better way. I will never buy a washer and dryer over the internet, and that's not because I'm old. It's because I want to actually is it front load? How much space is it? I want to be able to look at it a little bit and get kind of a sense of what it can do for me and how it's going to fit in with what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
Games are the same way. I really want to get a good feel for the game, and I have a very hard time buying a game sight unseen and finding a store that will allow you to demo and actually get a good feel of the game and a good sense of, is this something you're going to continue to play? Why spend the money to put something in your library if you're going to play it once and that's it? So.
Right. What I love about stores like Board Game Barrister, I know that we've been in there and I've gotten excited about a game or just played it through and gotten interested in a game. And when we've been there for GlenCon before, I've been able to see other people playing a game and watch them and look at it and say, oh, well, maybe I'd like to try that. And then I'm able to pull it down off the shelf, try it out, and then sure enough, we walk out of there with a couple of games at least. It's real. They make it really easy.
No, absolutely. How much does this approximately retail for?
$40.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So.
That's not bad considering how pretty it is.
Yeah.
It's a great little filler game too.
Yeah. The other nice thing about this is it does speak of history. I mean, you actually get facts about what happened at that World's Fair. And really kind of how historically important that particular fair was, especially for some of the, like you mentioned before, some of the things that we enjoy today were kicked off there. And we're going to be talking about a historical game here in our Kickstarter Spotlight as well. And there's just something really kind of cool about, the saying goes, what, the best lies are wedged between two truths. So it's really kind of fun to be a part of a game where you've got facts and then you've got that area in which to play around in with them. So games like that are really, they're not just educational, but they if done well, they can be a lot of fun. So. And how many players again? 2
to 4 players on this one.
Okay.
I have not yet played a 2-player game. I've played several 3-player. Most of the ones I've played are 4-player, and it doesn't really take a lot of extra time between a 3 and 4-player game, because the rounds do move pretty quick, because you're simply you place a cube and pick up a stack of cards. And so there's not a lot going on, and each space you're refilling cards every time someone draws. You add 3 more cards to the board, so no space ever gets that full either, so it's not like you have a lot to really think about when you're drawing cards. You go, oh, I really need some agriculture things. Look, that spot has 2 of them. I think I'll just go there. So for people who get that analysis paralysis, I mean, you can still get a little bit, but it shouldn't be as severe in this game, because there's less choices as far as it's easier to see what choices you need to make, I should say.
Sure. Yep. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
We are going to move into the news, and this.
You picked a story. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I saw this and I went, holy shit! That's kind of a big deal. I've had the opportunity to play this game a few times, and how long has that game been out?
Zombies? Oh boy, at least a decade, I think.
Yeah, I want to say at least 15 years.
It was before my kids were born.
Yeah.
Probably 11.
So, and I'm actually glad to see it being with what happened to it after, because of those who know. Well, actually, you didn't even say what the story is yet. So why don't you do that before I start going into details?
Okay, cool. The story is Mayfair Games acquires Twilight Creations. And this story came from a press release in Skokie, Illinois. Mayfair Games is excited to announce the purchase of a controlling interest in Twilight Creations, the award-winning board game publisher of the well-known Zombies series of games. I did that because there's 3 exclamation marks in the name of the game. You can't say zombies. You have to say zombies and get excited about it because the exclamation marks are there. Just saying. All right. Series of games in addition to the a horror-themed line of games, including The Haunting House. During this change, Carrie Breitenstein will remain an integral part of Twilight Creations, overseeing the creative side of the company as the Vice President of Design and Production. Lauren Rosnai of Mayfair Games will be taking on the role of President and will be in charge of the day-to-day operations of the company. All logistical operations for Twilight Creations are being moved to Mayfair Games in Skokie. All sales and distribution inquiries will be handled by our sales team in Plant City, Florida. All distributors will remain the same. We are happy to announce we will be showcasing the Zombies product line in the Mayfair Games booth at Origins Game Fair in Columbus, Ohio, June 15th through the 19th. Our presence for both companies at Gen Con, August 4th through the 7th, will remain the same this year. Twilight Creations will be in booth number 523, and Mayfair will be in booth 117. Watch for combined space for 2017. We are both excited about the possibilities ahead of us, and we hope you'll join us in this zombie adventure. Stay tuned for big zombies announcements, in coming months. So now, Glenn, give us some juicy details.
Well, what makes me happy is that Zombies, along with a bunch of Twilight Creations, they've still been around, but they lost a bit of their steam when Todd Breitenstein passed away in 2013.
Okay.
So it took some of the wind out of their sails. Obviously, when an integral part of your company, and the president of the company, and I actually met Todd twice. Not like we were great buds, but I got to meet him twice, and he was always just a genuinely nice guy and made some fun games. So it's nice seeing this getting picked up by Mayfair. And with Mayfair having sold off Settlers of Catan to Asmodee, they're branching out in different directions because they're not solely focusing on their one big fish, which was Catan. Sure. They have other games that they've been doing, and now they're partnering with Twilight Creations. It's great. It should hopefully breathe some new life into this company because they need it.
Yeah, and it's a fun game to play. I think I've played Zombies like twice, and both times have been really kind of fun and slightly nerve-wracking. And the thing that I really like about it, one of the things I really like about it is the detail of the miniatures that you use, and when you get a bag of zombies, and when you get a bag of zombies, it's a bag of zombies, and they have glow-in-the-dark zombies, and it's just...
They're pretty cool. The board's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can flip over sections of the board to kind of change things up, so you're not playing the same pattern each time. So it has a lot of replayability, and the gameplay is really fun. And as I recall, it's not a very long game to play.
That depends who you played with.
Well, there is that. If there's a black crayon involved,
there's a lot of room in this game for spite.
For spite.
Yes,
yeah.
And I have certain friends who will not play this game anymore because the spite was a bit too much for them. And we played for like 2 hours because no one could get anything done because someone always had something to spite another person.
Oh, yeah.
But that's part of the game, bitch.
It kind of is, yes. So, and to have a game where it's somewhat open-ended, where you can make it as long and as short as you want to make it, I guess. It's a great game, and to see a great game like that kind of wither on the vine is always a bit sad. So it's nice to see Mayfair's picking it up and keeping it moving forward. So And I'm sure they're going to take great care of it. So I'll be interested to see what they do with this property as time moves on. I'm sorry, Gretchen, what were you saying?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say I'm excited to see what they come up with together. You know, Mayfair will do with them.
Now, what are some of the? I mean, they no longer have Catan. What other board games does Mayfair currently have that are kind of front and center?
I need to check because Mayfair's made a lot of games.
Yep.
And some of them are not really around anymore, like Dos Rios and stuff like that. I mean, they've got them, but they do have one that I talked about before, Isle of Skye.
Oh, yeah, yep.
I talked about that not too long ago. But my gosh, I mean, trying to think, Agricola, which I don't really care for. Six Nimit, Saboteur, Mystery, Motive for Murder. That's one that we do. Star Trek 5-Year Mission.
Oh, okay, yep.
I know you've played.
Yes.
Patchwork, which is a pretty cool one right now. Murano, Extra, Gold Ahoy, Johari, Bedpans and Broomsticks. I mean, there's a lot. Caverna, Asgard's Chosen, which I think is kind of dead. Zen Garden, which I think is kind of dead. Yeah, there's a lot of games. Their big ones now are, I mean, Isle of Skye, which is up for one of the Spiel des Jahres. They do all the Rails games, Euro Rails, Martian Rails,
Okay.
Empire Builder. That's all them. So those are still in existence for all the Rails players, and there will be people spending their entire Gen Con playing just those games, and probably getting in like 2.
Yeah.
They take a long. It depends who you play with, but yeah, and I mean, it's nice to see them doing more and branching out. I mean, like I said, they still got some strong titles. I mean, Agricola, as much as I dislike the game, there's a lot of love out there for it, and it still sells fairly well for us. For a $70 game, it sells well enough. Isle's kind of been doing well. Patchwork is a great 2-player game. Star Trek 5-Year Mission is a fun little game too. So
yeah, it is. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that they're going to move forward and keep that moving because it like I said, I've said it a few times. It is a very fun game to play, and if you can find it, don't walk, run, and pick up a copy of Zombies because you will not regret it. Other things you won't regret would be listening to our podcast called The Alien Invasion. Every week, Dave Nelson, Anessa Moyens, and I talk about aliens in the news, whether that's in sci-fi books, movies, comics, or actual science about the topics of alien life. We discuss it, and you can check out The Alien Invasion on gncasts.com. Now, the Kickstarter Spotlight. Last time we spoke about Plague Inc. And it's been a couple of weeks, so okay, there we go. Yes.
So that one's done.
Yes. And if I can maneuver the internets,
They kind of succeeded.
they kind of crushed it by over 10 times what they were. Oh, I'm sorry, over 1,000 times. 10 times. What am I?
Yeah.
No, it was a little over 10.
No, 10 times. 10 times. Math is hard. That's why I'm not a actuary or in the insurance business, because I suck at math. Yeah, so over 10 times. Remind us, what was Plague Inc.?
Plague Inc. is, all these fun, but, for some people lame co-op games where you're saving the world. Screw that, let's kill everyone. Plague Inc. you can basically play as a disease, trying to be the first disease to wipe out the human race.
Now,
Sounds awesome.
this evening we just played Contagion, which is a part of the Pandemic line.
Yes.
And that was, it seems to be kind of along the same lines, at least not so much with, I mean, you get to evolve a disease to, so you can draw more cards or be more infectious, but this is actually a bit different from that. And
Yes.
how would you describe the difference between, like, Contagion and Plague Inc.?
Well, I think the big difference is just, well, first of all, Plague Inc. is based off of a computer game. It's been going on. It's a giant. 70 million players worldwide. So it takes from that game. Whereas Contagion, yeah, you can evolve diseases and stuff like that. Contagion was just the natural place for Pandemic to go, because Pandemic is all about being members of the CDC and wiping out the disease. So Contagion made sense for them to do. Is like, well, sometimes people want to be the bad guy, and that's what that is. So, so there are some similarities. I think gameplay is definitely different from what I can see as far as what goes on with Plague Inc. But I think you're going to have overlap, because it's a similar thing where in Contagion you are the disease, and in this one each of you are diseases. So you're going to have that overlap, and you might not want both. If you already have Contagion, Plague Inc. might be redundant enough where you wouldn't get it. And that's that's the nature of board games, is that there are so many now coming out, and just so many that already exist, that sometimes you hit that level of redundancy where you're like, do I really need another one of this type of game? That's kind of why I think Descent is a great game, but I don't own it because I don't need yet another dungeon crawl board game. I've got way more than enough.
Sure.
Especially when you also throw in role-playing games and everything else. It's redundancy for people who are big game collectors comes on pretty quick, and some people don't care. It's like potato chips, where you can't have one, you have to have all of them till the bag is empty. And the board game bag, I hate to tell you people who are trying to collect them all, it will never be empty.
Yes.
Never be empty.
That is very true. Gretchen, what's the Wolfmeyer game library like there?
Well, we have our guest bedroom dedicated to board games. And we have a little bit of everything. We love playing games together. We play Firefly. We'll play like quick pickup card games, things that the kids can play with us, like Lunch Money or Pooh. Just kind of fun stuff that way. The kids like really silly improv party games. We'd gotten one of those the last time we went to see Glenn. And we're always picking up new stuff. We have a nice shop here in town, too, and a board game group that meets.
Oh, nice.
Tuesday nights. So we're trying, now that we don't have obligations on Tuesday nights, we're trying to get in and meet up with them.
That's very cool.
Really good people.
Oh,
I've
nice.
met them online and been able to talk to them about different things coming out and different games.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we play some stuff. We have friends come over and play, and I've also hosted a board game night at like our church and had folks come and try stuff that they've never tried before.
Like Lunch Money and Pooh.
Right. Or, something maybe a little more low-key.
That's actually been a fairly big thing with us. Is I've been seeing more people who are part of church groups looking for games they can play and take to their church group. Because obviously you're not going to take, Arkham Horror.
Right.
Unless, of course, you belong to the Church of Cthulhu. Well, then maybe you would.
Flying spaghetti monster. We don't discriminate. It's all good.
Yeah, but so we always have to have those of us who sell games need to have that in our arsenal of, okay, well, here's games that should be, for the most part, non-threatening to anyone who has even a tiny bit of common sense. I did have one person who didn't want Settlers of Catan because they felt it was too violent.
Really?
Because there are soldier cards I explained to them, like, the soldiers don't actually do anything but scare away the robber. You don't actually attack anybody. She's like, well, there's enough soldier stuff and war already in the world. We don't need more of it. I'm like, you just don't know what you're talking about, but okay. I would have given up checkers.
I tend to pull out games like Settlers of Catan or Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride or something like that. And I think the World's Fair game that we talked about might be a neat one.
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect.
To that kind of group, especially because we've got all ages that come to our board game nights. We've got little kids and we've got retired folks. So, it's a large range there, and that's not my typical gaming group or board game group, but trying to get them interested in something different.
Sure. And that's really what it's all about, is exposing people to different things that maybe they didn't think that they were going to like, or something that that they're going to like, and spreading the word and bringing games back to full force. And
we like playing zombies too, so it's not like we only play church-approved games.
Yes.
Zombies!
Oh, yes. Zombies! All right. So what we're going to do now is, Plague Inc. Did incredibly well, and now we're going to talk about a game that former guest Rob Benton pointed out to me, and he described the game to me, and you have to watch the video for this game. It's wonderful. And here's the brief description of the game. The game is called The Pirate Republic, and this is by Tom Butler of Green Feet Games. And the brief description is: pirate across the new world to forge empires and seize power from European imperialists in this 1713 board game adventure for 2 to 4 players. This game is, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about World's Fair, excuse me, this is historically accurate. The pirates that you have the opportunity to play are real and are from that time period. This all takes place in the South Pacific, so you're dealing with the Dutch, and you're dealing with the Spanish. You're dealing with all these other navies that we're trying to clean up.
You mean the Caribbean?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, okay. The Caribbean.
18th century New World. I'm looking.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Cool.
Yep. Dealing with trying to do away with piracy and how that all kind of worked out. Now, I'm going to, for those of you who are checking us out on YouTube, I am going to screen share once again, and here is a view of what the map. Let's see if I can get a bigger shot of the map as everybody is vomiting while I'm flipping through stuff here. Okay, you get you're in and around Cuba. You're all around that whole area, around the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean islands and that whole area. Now, the one of the great things about this, and let me try to scroll to some of the cards. Well, you don't get to see it so much on the box. Dang it. They hired an artist who is exceptional, to do the cards for the different pirates. Excuse me. He did the art for the cover of the box. One of the stretch goals higher up is that he will actually paint a version of the map. They have a standard version of the map. It's all laid out already. But if they break that specific stretch goal, he will actually paint a version of this map.
That's pretty cool.
The artwork is exquisite, and I can't recommend enough checking out the Pirate Republic on Kickstarter and taking a look at that. if you check out the page, your different representations of your pirate ships they're basically, they look like they were designed in 3D, and you actually get a chance to get a spinning view of the little ship, and it's a beautiful representation of some of the types of ships. This is it's a single mast fore and aft rigged vessel. It's so detailed, so detailed. A single jib or head sail and gaff rig. They were made of cedar trees. Just all of the love that was put into the research of this is just amazing. Some of the limited edition, depending on what level you back it at, you can get signed and numbered 20-inch by 26-inch Pirate Republic commissioned artwork. It's just absolutely beautiful. They are looking to get $39,998 to get it funded. And they've got backing goals all the way up, and it's just absolutely, it's a wonderful game, and it's got some really decent reviews from some of the folks that have had an opportunity to play the game. And right now, they are, there we go. Right now, with 19 days to go, they are at $12,523, which is a crime. It should be well beyond that. So I think one of the things that might be holding it back is Green Feet Games is new.
Yep.
And first time out with a board game from a company that nobody's heard of yet is always rough. So, and they've taken steps here to make sure that it is Euro and Canada shipping friendly. So you're not going to have surprise shipping fees to get the game. Now, to get a basic version of the game, which gives you $55, gets you the board game and all the stretch goals. Oh, that's gone. Haha! Oh, they added another $55. Okay, so yes, $55 still gets you in at the ground level. If you get in at $129, that's when you get that limited edition artwork that I spoke of earlier. Which the artwork that was done for this, like I said, is absolutely beautiful. And they do have, if you're a retailer, they have for $195, you get 6 copies of the game. You do have to have the proof that you are an actual business, and so on. And the game is looking to be shipped, to be delivered to folks by February. So, for the both of you who have extensive libraries of games, would something like this fit into your library? We'll start with Gretchen.
Actually, it would. I picked up at our rummage sale recently for $1. I picked up Broadside.
Okay.
I'm familiar with that, but that is a sailing vessel battleship game. And Randy and Connell played it and absolutely loved it. And I had one of my old professors at UWSP commented on it, and he said, I remember playing this when I was a kid. And it is a 1962 board game with sailing ships battling, and it was just phenomenal. And this is, first of all, we're map geeks, so this is right up my alley.
Sure, yep.
And I would love to see this game, and I think $55 is definitely worth it. For what's getting there. It's a beautiful game.
Yeah, and I've kind of jumped over to the greenfeetgames.org site, and they do have a section of the site where they show the characters and the artwork. You get the opportunity to play Blackbeard, Sam Bellamy, Anne Bonny, Calico Jack. Now, I think one of the other stretch goals is they might add some other pirates to this, or there's a possibility of it. And you also get to see the different flags that they flew under as well. So, I mean, there's very much a historical aspect to this game. And I could see, if perhaps if you're a really cool history teacher, pulling out a game like this and letting people see kind of how piracy worked, possibly, and get a good feel of how that worked in I'm trying to find the right words for this, but to get a good sense of what piracy was, what it was all about, and the people that were a part of it, and how other countries felt about piracy. What is it? The Dutch India Company really, they were having their stuff stolen for the most part. And there were other countries shipping money around the world. They were being hijacked. There's a lot of things going on in that part of the world, and it had a wide-reaching impact. And to have that ability to get a good sense of that by playing this game is, I think it's a very valuable tool. So, all right.
Glenn, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
I think I would have it in my collection. Quite possibly. I have a couple other pirate games already. Libertalia is piratey.
Yep.
Obviously, much different gameplay. Sails of Glory, which is actually ship-to-ship combat, kind of like a pirate version of like an X-Wing, but a lot more advanced.
Oh, okay, sure.
So yeah, I could definitely see this making it into my library, and that's partly because I'm a whore when it comes to games. And I have way too many games.
You do, but we love you for it. And you're always the person that whenever we see a game or something like that, we always try to get your opinion and find out if it's any good, or if you have other information on it. So that's why we have you on the show. One of many reasons why we have you on the show, because you're the guy in the know.
I try.
Speaking of people in the know, Gretchen, hello.
I call myself in the know, but it's good.
Well, of all of the people in our peer group, you're the one that I always think of is more associated with improv for some reason, and I'm not sure why, but
it's probably because of my flailing Muppet arms most of the time.
Well, there is that. Yet another adorable Gretchen quality, the flailing Muppety arms. But we've talked about LARP in the past, and we even spoke with the web series LARPs, and
that was a great episode, by the way. I really enjoyed that one.
Those guys were absolutely wonderful. It was a great interview, and we posed the question there: what do they consider LARP to be? Especially when Scott, one of the actors of LARPs, being an actor doing improv, getting a feel of what he thought where LARP was. And for those of you who have never experienced LARP is live action role playing. It doesn't matter what the system is. The LARP that I did was Mind's Eye Theater, which is White Wolf's vampire LARP system, and they also had werewolf, and they did have one for.
They had one for Changeling?
They had one for Changeling, they had one for Mage, and I can't remember if they had any other ones at this time, but those are the ones that I remember. But the ones that, we played Vampire LARP. And the interesting thing about it is you had in your pocket a version of the character that you were playing, and of course it had the name and the oh my God, it's escaping me. Your list of disciplines, the I keep wanting to say tribe, and I'm got werewolf stuck in my head.
Oh, clan.
Clan, thank you. And it had your applicable stats for how to resolve conflicts. But as a whole, what was on the paper was all of the details that basically resolved conflict, and to try to, if you handed in this sheet, somebody can go, oh, well, that's your character, and they hand it to you. It had the nuts and the bolts, but the thing about LARPing is you have a sense of what the character is, and you've developed a history for the character and a personality for the character, and it is your job, essentially, when you come to the LARP, to put that character on and interact with the story, conflicts, whatever that happens in the game as that character. So, Gretchen, with her experiences in theater, with improv, and with LARP, I wanted to talk to you about where you think LARP lies in the spectrum of acting, improv, or whatever performance type art you'd want to classify it as. So let's start with some basics. What essentially is improv?
What is improv?
Yeah.
But basically, it is being able to create a scene with yourself and some other players or characters, and that can be a short scene or a long scene. There is long-form improv and short-form improv, but really it's being there and being willing to improvise. Just being, improv comes from improvisation, and being able to be willing to jump in and see what one person is doing and say, okay, yeah, I'll be a part of that, and let's add this in, and then you're adding in something else, and you're taking the scene somewhere. And that's so important, to be able to move it and go from point A to point B, and to be able to have a fun ride in the middle and then have an ending.
Sure.
And it's really great. I started in improv with Delicious Ambiguity Comedy, and one of your other guests was our founding father, Rob Benton, of Delicious Ambiguity Comedy. I had a lot of other friends that had done comedy sports and created their own improv troops, the Dead Alewives in Milwaukee, and have gone on to do improv and Improv Olympics in LA, and continued on from there. But it's just so much fun to do that, and you have to be willing to just put yourself out there. And I think what's cool about LARP is you can put yourself out there, but you also have your statistics or your character traits to fall back on, so you can kind of, it's a building block, and you can use it like Legos and build from there, and then keep building, and then add on something new, where if you're in a theater, if you're in a show, I'm in a show coming up this summer, you're kind of just building a character, but we don't have stats. We don't have, our fighting stats for that. That would be cool if we did.
It would make for very, very interesting shows, that's for sure.
Well, we're doing Sister Act, and if I could get in some combat with some nuns, that would be really great.
Pull out a foam sword and
that does that.
Just drop some rock, paper, scissors right in the middle of the show.
Well, I'm a backup singer in Sister Act. I'm one of Dolores' backup singers in our show this summer, and so maybe I can do some of the little
there we go.
Rock, paper, scissors things as I go. But no, improv is just being willing to put yourself out there. And it's actually one of the scariest things I've ever done, but I'm so glad that I've been able to do it, and I think it's helped me just be a goofy parent. It's helped me to be a better character player in tabletop games. It's helped me to be, to be open to LARPing. And I loved LARPing with the crew in Mind's Eye Theater and the group that you guys did, Brad. It was so much fun.
And my phone, which I of course cannot find, is going off. There it is. Sorry about that.
Too late. Night's ruined.
Yep.
Who is it?
All
Let's
right.
say hi.
Oh no, it's an alarm for Alex. So there we go. Okay, getting back to things. What? Okay, so now we have a general sense of what improv is and kind of how it works. What are some of the important guidelines, tenets of or rules of improv? How does it work?
Well, I mean, basically what I had said before is that you just have to be open to the scene. You have to be willing to go with that other person, to be able to go with them and agree to whatever it is they're doing. It's definitely the principle of yes and. To be able to start a scene, if you're the one starting it and you want to go to the ocean, the other person's going to go to the ocean with you. And then from there, they might be, you know, a weird grandpa that decides that he doesn't see the ocean, he sees the War of 1812. And then from there, and you would just agree to that and keep going from there. So, I mean, it can be kooky, it can be, you could get in a spaceship from there and go on from there. I don't know if you guys listen to other podcasts too, but I've really enjoyed listening to Harmontown with Dan Harmon and Jeff Davis and Rob Schrab, which Rob Schrab and Dan Harmon had done improv a long time ago and continued on doing that sort of thing and have become writers. Jeff Davis has been on Whose Line Is It Anyway, and he started out in improv as well. And I listen to their podcast and I laugh my head off because I see where they're taking a scene. They might be talking about their issues together as friends, and then they decide to improv it and play it out and see where it takes them. And it's just utterly ridiculous and enjoyable, and that's what I love about improv.
Yeah, that's Harmontown is on my list of. I haven't started listening to it yet, but I had some podcasts end, so I'm going to be cycling some new things in, and that's definitely on my list to add.
If you love their stuff that they did with the Dead Alewives, if you listen to their stuff they did there, I remember going to live shows and seeing them, and they were absolutely hilarious, and they just continued to stay funny and grow and learn and be as goofy as ever. So it's really enjoyable.
Well, speaking of learning, how does somebody get better at improv? I mean, it's not like you can lift weights and be stronger, or, you know, this is something where you have to be witty, funny, and creative. How do you get to be better at being wittier, funnier, or more creative?
Well, I mean, you can definitely work on characters, work on things yourself, but I think the best thing to do would be to check out locally, see if you can take classes. We've got a great community theater here, and my kids are taking classes. They took classes this fall. Connell did a Big Hero 6 themed class and really worked on like superpowers and how to show your superpowers and what to do. And my daughter took a class on what's the movie? The movie with all the feelings.
Oh,
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Her class was Inside Out based, so they really worked on emotions. They worked on playing improv games and not showing emotions. You know, honey, I love you. Won't you please smile? And you look into someone's eyes and you make silly, crazy faces until they laugh. And if they don't laugh, they're like, honey, I love you, but I just can't smile. You know, and they tried to trick us when we came for parent night. And I'm like, oh no, you're not going to get me. I got your number.
I have a feeling that it's like anything that's a creative aspect or creative act, whatever you want to call it. It's like drawing or writing or anything like that. I think, at least to me, a large part of how you get better is you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do it more often, and you check out the people who do it better than you, and you see what they're doing, and that's a big thing. Is why is this person so much better at it? What are they doing that's different from how I approach it?
Right.
Sure. Okay.
And I think you can learn from scripted things. I think you can learn from, Saturday Night Live and other things like that, Upright Citizens Brigade, other fun, places. But you can also take what they've done and then work on something new, work on your own. So you can play basic improv games. You can, go out and see other shows, see live theater, see other things that interest you, learn about it. There's a ton of things now with the interwebs. We can check out live performances, streaming. We can check out things on YouTube and really just enjoy all of that. But just wickedly, wickedly funny stuff. I think some of the funniest stuff, the hardest stuff I've ever done has been improv where you've had to sing.
Okay.
And that's just been, because not only do you have to come up with a tune and figure it out, and then but you still have to make it funny.
Sure. Yep.
And
So
you're gonna fall flat on your face. It's okay to fall on your face.
Sure. Yeah, when you're doing something like that, you are really juggling a lot of plates and keeping them in the air.
Yeah.
So just practicing that and just keep jumping in and doing it, and not being afraid. That's got to be a big part of it.
That is a big key. The other thing is just being present, being in the moment, being able to be there and be responsive. And maybe you've got something in your head that you'd like to use, but maybe it's not going to fit. Maybe that isn't really who your character is at this point. And I think that works with LARP too. You have to look at what is there and then see if you can take it to the next level, see if you can take it somewhere, but you also have to stay within those parameters that you've been given.
Yeah.
It's almost like listening to your director or listening to someone that is overseeing the LARP and saying, okay, well, you have to keep it, within this. If your charisma is really low, you can't be that charming.
Try as you might, and that would come out in the rock paper scissors essentially,
Right.
in the challenge.
Yeah.
Which is why my characters all have a high, nothing.
Oh, sure they do. Listen to that voice.
So in improv there is kind of an agreed upon beginning and maybe an end, but definitely a beginning, a starting point. And you have to kind of agree on that premise and move forward. But there isn't a whole lot of, it's improvised, so there isn't necessarily a whole lot of structure to it.
Right.
Now, when we talk about theater, there's a script that you are given, and there is a lot of structure. But the art in that is sort of the execution of how the performance is done. Is that accurate?
Well, I think you do have a lot of leeway there.
Okay.
You do have those words printed. You do have those directions printed. Any movements or what's going on in the scene. But you can take that and work with it. That doesn't mean that your character couldn't have an accent or couldn't be over here or whatever. You have to work with your director in that case. And, in LARP too, they're going to give you some goals. They're going to give you some direction. Here's what you need to accomplish. Here are the things that you need to do. So you're always striving towards that. And that's your motivation. And so, in theater, you're also going to have your motivation. And in improv, maybe you don't talk about what your motivation is because you're just doing this on the fly, but your character has to be going in a direction, has to be going somewhere.
Sure.
And so, they might be motivated by money or ice cream or ferret. Who knows?
Okay, so I do have a question when it comes to improv, and I think that this can apply to LARP, is if you're in a scene in improv and things seem to be maybe stalling a little bit, or it's going somewhere where maybe there is no funny. How would you, as another person that's a part of this particular thing, pull it back to the funny or to the direction that it needs to go?
Well, I mean, that could be hard. You may have to agree to what they're saying, but then move the scene to a new place.
Okay.
Maybe ask a question. Maybe look for another motivation. Maybe start an argument. Maybe you would bring in someone else or something else into the scene to take it back out of there. That could be difficult, and there are some folks that would just take the bad and ride it down as far as it can go until it's funny again.
Okay.
And
if you want an example of that, check out Norm Macdonald.
Oh no, don't do that.
Okay.
But I think you just have to be open to it, and you have to be willing to go there. You have to be comfortable with who you're working with, and the more you would improvise with someone, the more you would work with someone, the more you can see into their mind, kind of where they're going, and then you can take it, and then you could always do something completely non sequitur and ridiculous from there too to get them out.
Okay.
Would hopefully be funny.
Gotta find the funny. Go looking. Okay. So when we and for those who aren't familiar with LARP and how that's we've talked about improv and having an agreed upon start point and then moving from there. We've talked about theater and how while you have a script, you have a director, you can work with the director and finagle some things, maybe modify some things, but still being true to the work.
Mm-hmm. You get to play, and I think that's the key in all of it is to play, to be that kid, and okay, here's our agreed upon place that we're playing. We're gonna play in the grocery store. We're pretending it's a grocery store. Okay, well here we go. This is what we're gonna do, and you'll have a shopkeeper and you'll have the customer, and then you'll kind of go from there, and just being willing to play. And I think that's what good directors will want you to play around with it too, and kind of think about it and figure it out.
Sure. Okay.
I would think you could do that with a LARP too.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to a LARP, and I don't think that we've really talked about this, when it comes to a LARP, you have a storyteller or storytellers that craft plot or premise, but kind of loosely, in that there could be a start point, there is probably a direction that they're looking to have it go with an end point in mind, but the point where the LARP actually happens is when a character kind of falls into that particular area and plays around in that space and then moving things to get to that end point, and maybe not have that end result happen the way you thought it was going to be, because the fun is in the journey in getting to at least relatively close to that end point, if not at that point that you were looking to get to as a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to think. Have either of you run a LARP?
I have not.
Only sort of.
Okay.
I did a role-playing game where we did act out some of the actual scenes. So all the discussions and stuff like that. We didn't do it for combat, but when we were discussing stuff and we were talking with other people, we would actually get up off the table. This was one I did for a con a while back that I was helping a friend out. I was kind of half running it. He was the one who was actually in charge, but I was actually running most of the other characters.
Okay.
So I had a loose script, but I had to have that script flow with where the characters took it.
Okay.
But not to the degree that like you have.
Yeah. I think the last year that I was a part of the Stevens for the UWSP LARP, I think it was 2001. It was the year that Alex was born, and I think it was probably the second time that I ran. The first time I ran, with all due respect to Rob, we had kind of created a Monster of the Week LARP, which, while it's interesting for some, others were not quite as keen on that, and completely understandable. One of the things that you have to kind of juggle is, I guess, sort of as a director, you want to find out about the character that each person is playing and how you can fit them into that space and work with them to try to, make sure that they're getting the best experience for the time that they're putting in to the LARP.
Now, were these characters that they created and brought to you, or were you giving them created characters that fit into your LARP?
That's a very good question. If we did a one-shot was always pre-made characters. But for the LARP that this was, it was for the length of the school year. So it was characters that they made and brought. And then we talked about it to make sure that it was going to fit. Somebody wasn't trying to work the system to make something really kind of esoteric and very difficult to run, and that rarely ever happened.
Did you have power gamers though too, where they were?
Oh yes.
Completely min-maxing and.
Yes. Rob Benton. And
well, yeah, he knows how to read things. He's good. I played with him. We played Torg.
Okay.
Back in the dorms.
Sure.
He was our DM at that point, so he crushed us. It was okay.
And what I ended up doing that year is I ended up recruiting a couple of people. I ended up recruiting Kat Lemmer. I ended up recruiting former guest Ian Benton. And I had some premises, some of the NPCs of the city, laid out some story ideas, and I gave Kat a particular series of characters and a plot line that I knew that she would enjoy playing with, and gave her control of it.
Cool. She's brilliant. She's so good.
Yeah, she is exceptional. And I felt that I gave her a lot of the primer stuff that she could, so that she could play. That's kind of one of the interesting things that I found with that particular LARP is not only because I had other co-storytellers, I also wanted them to get to play and have fun as well. So I tried to structure something that I thought would play really well to Kat's strengths, and gave her the freedom of, if she felt shackled by something, that she could feel free to change that and not be hampered by anything, so that she could just kind of move that over. And I handed that over completely. I didn't, she did whatever she wanted to with that, and that was cool. And then she'd report back and let me know what happened, and then I would coordinate with something that I had given Ian to do, and then we would kind of discuss how that would impact the city as a whole, and kind of mesh things back together and see, if something happened over here, if that would have impact over there. And it was a lot of fun and very, very interesting. So
it's good to have that trust
Yeah.
Be able to, as a storyteller, to be able to trust that those players that are working with you can help to further the story, and I think that carries over in theater and it carries over in improv too. You know, you have to trust that that other person is going to work with you and help to further the story, and that's what you were doing with them.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of learned a little bit of that from Dale Newby. He let me in one of Mind's Eye Theater used to put out like a quarterly digest and gave like plot ideas and talked about certain aspects and different things about Mind's Eye Theater, but then in one of the digests they actually put in some of their rules at that point, the very first rules for the True Bruja, and they are, for those of you who know about White Wolf and the whole vampire clan structure, they're kind of the anarchist rebels as we knew them in the series when you first get to meet this particular clan. And it turns out that that particular clan is a kind of a bastardized takeover of the true version of the clan. Now, the Bruja that you know about, they're the more common, have an ability called celerity, which gives them the ability to move incredibly fast. That is a kind of a bastardized version of the true Bruja's ability, which is called temporis, and they actually can control time to a certain degree.
That's cool.
So I presented the idea to Dale, and I said, you know, here's a rule set that you can take a look at, and I was thinking about playing this particular character. Here's the background. Here's the thought process. Would you take a look at that and see if you're cool with me doing that? If not, that's fine too. But this is just something that grabbed my attention. It was, you know, we're going to start the year up here, and this really I thought would kind of be neat to play. And he allowed me to do it. And quite honestly, there was room with that first draft of rules to absolutely screw the system. But
you did your homework. You brought an idea to him, and
yep.
he okayed it, and wanted you to play with it. So you have to see if it'll break, see if it'll work.
Yes,
and
and
you weren't Rob Benton.
Well, had Rob presented that, I think it would have gone differently.
Right.
And no disrespect to Rob, but Rob is somebody who, as a min-maxer, as that particular type of person, he will try to see how far he can go with the thing, with an idea that he has, and that's not a bad thing. You as a DM or storyteller or whatever have to know, this is, and if Rob listens to this, I doubt that he will. The thing about Rob and players like Rob is you have to have not necessarily a line in the sand, but have that understanding that I will take this up to this point, and you're not going to be able to talk me past this. We will try to do as much as we can to allow you to play in the space that you want to, but there are going to be limits to that, and hold true to those limits. And that's...
He's not the only person that does this. He's just really good at it.
He's exceptional at it. We had dinner this evening, and we went to a sushi place, which is like half a block away from our house. They just started up there. Exceptional sushi. But like everything with Rob, and it's one of the wonderful things about our relationship as friends, and also one of the horrifying things about our relationship as friends, is grand adventures will happen with us by him saying, you know what you need to do, Brad? And we go from there. And wonderful things have come from that. We made a shot glass chessboard for Ian when he when he first moved to college, and he was a very, very popular student in his particular dorm with that shot glass chess set. But again, that was Rob's like, you have the tools to do this. You know what we need to do? And sure enough, we're at the sushi place, and he's like, oh, they have this. You need to get this. And I'm like, I do.
Brad, I've been in your shoes. That is my college career in a nutshell. Rob said, hey, we need to do this. And I said, okay.
But, and that, like anything else, you trust that Rob's not going to screw you over, and you're going to probably have a good time.
Time of your life, absolutely.
I regret nothing about that sushi because it was amazing. And it was a good time. And like the LARP here, Dale had he was a storyteller, and he had trust that I wasn't going to work the system, and that I was going to be reasonable and very aware that having the ability to control time, and one of the powers that you had with this particular character, with Temporis, at least with the writing of that first draft, is you had the ability, if you were near somebody who is using celerity, you could turn it off on somebody.
Wow.
Ooh.
And, Dale and I talked about that, and he knew I wasn't going to use it necessarily irresponsibly, but my character's motivation was to, kill all the Bruja in this city, or, get people to hate them and drive them out or whatever. And
you could use that to absolutely affect gameplay.
Yes.
And when you needed to, when you had your motivation and your goal, use it.
Yeah, exactly. And I only used the power once, that particular power once. And somebody was trying to escape punishment, which was rightly deserved, and they were trying to get past me. And this was E-Wit, and she's like, I run past you, I'm using celerity, and I'm like, no, you don't. I turned to Dale, and I'm like, I'm doing the thing, and he's like,
forget about it.
All right. And she stopped and looked, she's like, what? Your celerity's been turned off. And nobody ever figured out that I was true Bruja. That was the other thing too. They were hunted almost to extinction, and you aren't really supposed to reveal that you are. That's that particular character. So anyways, Dale had the trust that I wasn't going to abuse the system, and I didn't, and we had fun. So while LARP, getting back to the whole crux of this thing, and one of the things that if somebody asks me to describe LARP, I always try to say it's somewhere between improv and theater, where there isn't necessarily a script that you work off of, but you have directors. So, and there's that.
Good.
Yeah, okay. So, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because you have experienced all three of these things. You've experienced improv, you've done theater, and you've LARPed. And it's not any of one particular thing. It just seems to be a marriage of a number of things. And if you were to... So you think that that's a fairly accurate description then? It's somewhere between...
Well, I think I've been a longer gamer than I've done any of the others. I started playing D&D in 4th grade.
Okay.
4th grade, 5th grade. I'm soon to be 43 now. So, it's been a long time, but I've always liked character creation and being able to come up with different situations and scenarios through gaming and through tabletop gaming, and then also being able to problem solve in that. And I think that my love of theater kind of came from gaming, if that makes sense at all, because it allowed me to play in a different way. It allowed me to do that character creation and to have fun on a stage and have that be something that other people can see and I can receive feedback on that way. And improv kind of stemmed from that because I was aware of improv type games and comedy sports, and that's when Rob founded Delicious Ambiguity Comedy. He based it on the comedy sports improv games, and I played some of those improv games just working in high school theater and moving on to college and taking college classes in improv and things that way. So it was just a really good time. And I think LARP then came after that. And so that was a hybrid that I really enjoyed because I got to have a character with stats, but I also got to play in, you know, the kind of improv, okay, well, here's your goals. Here's your motivation. Now you can work with it. I think some of the LARPs that I've been in were a little frustrating because I was set in a character, but I had to realize the bigger picture of things. And I think if there are players either doing a tabletop game or a LARP and they might get frustrated, you have to always keep in mind that there might be a bigger end goal and to just enjoy the story. Although you want to do really cool things and you want to have really great powers, be able to kick someone's ass. In that, maybe that's not your character. Randy and I came up for one LARP. We had a Hamlet LARP. I don't know if you were a part of that or not.
Yeah, I was. I was the Malkavian who was in charge of. Yeah, I was the head of the Melks.
Well, Randy and I were Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yes, that's right.
We were doomed at the beginning, which was actually really brilliant and a lot of fun, but we were not coming out of that alive. It didn't matter.
Yeah, and actually my character would have been killed had the game if we were able to play beyond how long the building was going to be open. I would have been killed by my clan, which I'm like, really? Oh man, that sucks. But I actually learned how to force cards for that. So in my character, I'm like, "Is this your card?" And I'd be guessing people's card, wandering around with that. So yeah, it was a very, very fun and interesting LARP. And yes, a one-shot like that, which that was, where you were handed a character and you were given kind of the basics of the name and who the character is, the affectations and other tweaks that you could give the character were all your own ability. You could do whatever you wanted to within the structure of the game and the rules, the stats of the character.
So often in theater too, you're playing.
Oh, I thought I had to sneeze. Sorry.
So often in theater, you are fitting a certain role, and you have to be willing and open to do that and do that to the best of your ability. And I think with LARP, there are certain roles and certain places that need people, and you have to be willing to take that on, even if it's not the most kick-ass character ever. But you have to enjoy it and make it your own and figure out a way to make that fun.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I played with you guys. I was a Malkavian who had a sketchbook.
Yes! Oh my God! Yeah!
And that was one of my favorites. Is I would sketch other characters in the game, and I would, for a short time, steal one of their powers.
Yes.
That.
And I think my favorite moment was, or not even necessarily a power. It wouldn't always be a power. Sometimes it would just be an attribute of them. And the brilliant time I had with him, where I drew Dale's character, where I think he was head of the Tremere, and he was meeting with the Nosferatu to work on some kind of deal, and he starts talking to them, and all of a sudden, I forget who was running the game, comes over and says, "You no longer have your Austrian accent." And he's like, I what? So then he stops using it, and then instantly the players picked up instantly, like, wait a minute, why are you talking different? And I love the fact that, I have been known to have to power game a bit in my past, and a lot of times with Randy's games, it's almost inadvertent power gaming, where I make characters who just break the system without even thinking. It's like, I'll be a martial artist in a sci-fi campaign, which apparently breaks that game. But it was nifty being a character.
Work your strengths.
Yeah, I had no. I mean, I was a Malkavian. I was not, in any way set up for any kind of power or anything. So, but there was so much fun to be had with that character because I got to interact with other people so much, even in ways that they didn't always appreciate. And then I tried to challenge Gretchen to something, and she was, I don't remember if she was gangrel or so. She was better at anything intimidation-wise than I was, and I just did poorly.
Stand down, man. Stand down. I think it was gangrel. I'm trying to.
You stole my book from me, which made me very sad.
Sorry. Don't hate me. I was just playing the role I was meant to play.
Absolutely, and that was, as I recall, everybody who had an opportunity to play that still talk about that. I mean, look at us now. Still remember how wonderful that was because we had that wonderful shared experience that was directed very well by the team that put it together, and I mean, I knew what character I was going to play, I think, probably about 5 days ahead of time so I could practice the card trick to have as an affectation for the character that I was playing. So
a lot of us didn't get that kind of notice. It was show up, here's what you're playing, go with it. And that was fun.
I was
willing to do that.
I think I was the brother-in-law of somebody who was running it, so that helped. Membership had its privileges at the time. So, anyways, so yeah, LARP, I guess, for lack of any better description, lies somewhere between improv and theater, and through trust and understanding and communication between the players and the storytellers, you craft a shared experience that, like with the Hamlet LARP game, God, it's always one. I keep forgetting that game happened. And whenever we start talking about it, you start remembering little bits and pieces, and you remember how good of a time that you had. And that's really when you know you've been a part of a good LARP, is everybody smiles and remembers their little particular section of the world that they occupied for that particular game and had a great time. And that's always a true testament to the storytellers that put that together and allow the freedoms to make a memorable game. So
there's nothing like shared storytelling. I think that's why I like gaming so much, and I like, even now I don't get to do LARP as much as I'd like to, but tabletop games and even going to a con. If you're going to a con and you think you might be interested in doing it, I say try it, sign up for it.
Yeah.
Definitely, have that experience with other people, and then go out to dinner afterwards and talk about what could have happened or what did happen, and be able to really make that connection. I think so often we're on our phones and on our computers so much now that we don't get that face-to-face connection.
And I feel I have to add, if you have a poor experience in a LARP, don't let that sour you from everything. Because the first LARP I ever did, it was Vampire LARP with, oh my gosh, if they were more emo, they would have created like an emo loop in the space-time continuum, and all happiness would have been sucked into it. They were just awful people as far as how depressing they were, and it's like they felt that should come across in the game as in no one should have fun playing this because all life is meaningless anyways, so why should you enjoy any of it? And I'm like, and it was an awful experience. But then I met you guys, and I did a couple of LARPs up by you that were a blast, and I think at a con it's a great way to do it because you're getting in on something designed specifically for that, because it can be hard getting into a LARP that's an ongoing one where you're the new person.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I mean, there's so much unwritten rules for every LARP of the way you do specific things and just the way you interact. You don't know the hierarchy because you'll see someone's character and you don't know what the real pecking order is yet.
Right.
And I had that issue with a couple of LARPs I tried where it was some are not as open to new players.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some really, there's the saying of, how absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if someone is in a game and they're the prince of the city, they can become a bit dickish.
Yeah.
And there should be a degree of that because they are the prince, and they should be able to tell you to do stuff. And well, they're the damn prince. You do it, but there's a way to do it where it still makes the game enjoyable for people, where you're not just simply like you're playing the longest game of asshole, where no one else is ever allowed to win. You always just have to be the person who just go get me drinks. Because I witnessed a LARP like that where the higher up people were just, they bossed around the new players and they made them do things for them all the time. I'm thirsty, go get me something from the vending machine, and people would do it. I'm like, I'm not spending money on you because you've played longer than me.
Right.
So
yeah, that's where like having a one shot or having something in a con is probably better because you're not going to have that absolute power.
Yes.
I have to mention that when you said Prince of the City, it brought up the first time I brought Randy up to LARP up in Stevens Point, and he was just a little knockoff one-shot character that if this was something that Todd roll, oh, let the angels sing. And Kat Lemmer had put together, it was a one-shot LARP, and Randy was playing a Kaitif or Katif, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, and he was posing as one of the other clans. I think he was mixed in with the Gangrels, and he ended up becoming Prince of the City. And so here's this guy that nobody knew who kind of became Prince of the City by default. And he basically worked it the way he does any sort of diplomatic thing, where he found out what the other people wanted and tried to give them options that they wanted, that he would win either way. He's very good at diplomacy. So this was Randy being little mushroom-headed and diplomatic at the time. But
was this after you guys were married?
No, this was when we were dating in college.
Okay, because that sounds just very familiar to one that we had. Well, there was a different one, I think, where Randy was posing as someone he wasn't.
Well, and I think that's the basis of all Randy's games now. Like every game that we play, every character has a secret, and you get to pull off the mask, and you're like, actually, I'm not a guy. I'm a girl brain transplanted into a guy's body, and oh yeah, there's my other severed head. So.
Or it's, here's the reveal. You're not people. You're just a bunch of whiny manginas who, oh, we won't go into that one.
Oh, don't turn me into a bad feminist again.
I was right there with you because, that was, well, he's never going to listen to this, where a player got offended by me because my character was calling his character a name. I'm like, you realize this isn't me calling you a name, right? And I don't understand why you're all crying. Now, are you 38 years old and almost ready to cry about this game?
I think part of this whole experience talking about theater and improv and LARP is that at times I think you do have to have thicker skin or realize that people attacking your character, that it's not about you personally.
Yeah.
This is in game. And this is, in the scene or in the play, however you're looking at it, and you need to realize that, no, this is your role, this is what's going to happen, and, to work with it from there and not take it so personally to the point where we can't play and we have to talk about our feelings.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think we've all had that experience, and yeah, it's not fun. Well, I think that we are going to wrap things up. I think we've come to a general consensus of where kind of LARP lies in the spectrum, and encourage people to give it a try, to have the ability to create something and try out a different persona is not a bad thing. It can be a very good thing, and to interact with people, and interact people in a kind of in a safe environment, or should be a safe environment, and have fun with other people that want to have the same fun experience that you do is a wonderful way to spend your time. So, speaking of people who have spent time with us, we got a little bit of feedback from Big 1975 about Adventure Party Episode 7. That's Patrick Rothfuss and world building. We're going to go through this. Understand that English is not this person's first language, so we'll clarify any bits here as we read this. We were talking about what system you could possibly use, or what system, RPG system, Pat felt that would work well for his series of books, the Kingkiller Chronicles, that he's in the process of finishing up. And Big 1975 said, for Champions, the hero system, Patrick was totally right except for one thing. The most complicated part is the character creation, the powers, the spell creation, and you have to make a little effort for combat. For those of you who have never played the hero system, Champions, you need to use a program that they have to make your character. Trying to do the math to create a character, while it is possible, it is very easy to do it wrong, because there's a lot of math involved in putting a character together. So, continuing on. But when the character is done, the playing is essentially 3d6 throwing, simple to play. By the way, I'd really love a show in which Pat could explain how he uses Champions in his world using the magic system, storytelling. So I guess essentially having Pat maybe give some tips into how you could possibly try to make taking the Kingkiller Chronicles and putting them into the hero system to make that work. Pat's a pretty busy guy, and I'm not sure we'll be able to get him anytime soon to try to attempt that. But if we do, perhaps we'll see if he can shed some light on that. So thank you for taking the time to share that with us. And Big 1975 gave us that comment through YouTube, and we use YouTube to record our shows, and then we pull the audio off of that to create the audio podcast. So it is possible for you to go to youtube.com/galacticnetcasts and see the videos of each of our shows that we do. You can keep on top of what Adventure Party is up to by following Galactic Netcasts on Twitter, by liking our Facebook page, or subscribing to our YouTube channel that I just mentioned. We also have accounts on some other social media platforms as well. Just search for Galactic Netcasts or click on corresponding logos on the top right of our main webpage at gncasts.com. You can also support all that Galactic Netcasts does by making a monthly recurring pledge at patreon.com/galacticnetcasts. Your $1, $3, or $5 support every month can help pay for operating costs such as web and audio hosting. The best part is, at every level of giving, you will get a bonus bit of content that other listeners won't have access to. Again, if you want to contribute, go to patreon.com/galacticnetcasts. For more on this podcast, including show notes, contact info, or more, you can go to gncasts.com/adventure. And you can subscribe to this podcast by going to gncasts.com/subscribe, or search for us on iTunes, Stitcher, now on Google Play Music, or anywhere fine podcasts are offered. So, Gretchen, I want to thank you. We finally found, I wanted to have you on the show, but I had to find a way to make it work. And by God, if we didn't make it work. So,
well, thank you for having me. You're welcome, and I appreciate being on. It was so much fun.
It's always gratifying when a friend of yours goes, "Hey, I've been listening to your podcast," which you don't hear that often from just any old folk. So it was good to have Gretchen, who Glenn has known longer than myself, and I have known for quite a while.
Really?
Wow. And shut it, Bittner.
There's always one, Glenn.
No, I just with the whole Stevens Point thing, I just assumed you would have known her longer.
No, actually, I didn't get to Stevens Point. I was living in La Crosse. I didn't move back to this area until '95.
Ah.
So I had heard stories of Gretchen and how sweet and wonderful she was, and then she broke my mind in 1996 during trivia for something that we still mention in hushed tones to this day.
Well, again, this was Rob Benton saying,
Yes.
You know what would be funny is if you did this.
I need to make a T-shirt that just has that as a quote.
That's how all good stories start.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've known Brad for a long time. Even if like I didn't know him then, he would have been like a great friend even before I met him.
Had things changed, I would have gone to the UWSP starting in like '89. So I'm not sure our paths would have necessarily crossed. It would have been.
Glad they did.
Yeah, I'm glad things turned out the way they did too. I've got a great group of friends, and I count you among them. So, when is Sister Act again? You mentioned that you're going to be in Sister Act, and when is that performance?
That's through our local Quincy Community Theater here. It's my first time performing with them. I took a big leap and said, I'm going to do this summer. It's going to be the last 2 weekends in July. So we've got 10 performances, possibly more, but it'll be really, really cool.
Awesome. And this is in Quincy, Illinois.
Yep, it's the belly button of Illinois. You see that big belly? Around the belly button. That's where we live.
So if you enjoy musical theater and Sister Act, while it started as a movie, or was it?
It started as a movie, and then Whoopi Goldberg decided, let's take it to Broadway. They actually workshopped it. They did a London debut with it, and Alan Menken came in. He does all sorts of Disney music.
Oh, yes.
Music is all Alan Menken. He did Little Shop of Horrors, which I love. He did Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Enchanted, Entangled. So, it's really fun and music heavy, so I've got a lot of learning to do.
But you will succeed, I know that. So thank you very much for joining us here at the Adventure Party. Glenn.
Yep.
Where can people find out more about what you do on the B-Movie Bunker and Mist Runner?
Well, in theory, you can find more about B-Movie Bunker on Facebook with B-Movie Bunker, or on YouTube with Guy in a Bunker Productions, though I haven't done much with it this year because I've been busy with a lot of other things, but I hope to get back on the review track soon. Maybe just I do so many podcasts, because you can also find me not only on this podcast, I also do Astro Radio Z, and I do the Spoiler Room with the wonderful Mark the Movie Man. So you can find me on those as well. And just follow me on Twitter at Guy in a Bunker. Or come to Milwaukee, go to the Board Game Barrister, and I will show you some wonderful board games.
Yes, and I highly recommend, this isn't a paid thing, but I highly recommend taking that trip to Milwaukee and checking out the Board Game Barrister. You will not be disappointed. All right. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us here at the Adventure Party. May your characters never die and your adventures always be epic. Thank you, and good night.